Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this horror DVD movie review video. As part of my current series, where I'm taking a look at random horror movies from my DVD collection, somewhat related to summer, although not exclusively. So today we're going to go ahead and take a look at a slasher movie, which is not necessarily related to summer, although it works for summer. It does kind of have summer vibes a little bit. So that's kind of a lesser known, I would say, slasher from the early 2000s, which is Final Stab from 2001, also known as Final Scream. So yeah, there's a little bit of history on this movie. I actually got this. It's actually the first horror movie that was ever bought for me on DVD anyway, from my parents back in, I want to say '04, '05, like literally a couple of years after this. It might have even been '02, '03. I don't remember. I don't know if there's a year on this that would 2002. So yeah, I probably got it in 2002, 2003, but it was the first horror movie ever bought for me on DVD. Um, so I have a little bit of nostalgia for it. So I just wanted to mention that. Now let's go ahead and get into the nuts and bolts of this video on the review. So Final Stab is a 2001 American slasher film that was directed by David Dakota. Dakota. Decado. I don't know how you pronounce it. David Decado. Right, written by Matthew Jason Walsh, David Decado, and Ryan Cararsi. Um, It's basically a movie about a sister who wants to get revenge, a gal who wants to get revenge on her sister. She invites her and her boyfriend to a mystery farm along with her old friends to participate in the game with fake blood and knives. But her sister and her disturbed boyfriend are were not surprised to know about the fake part, but they it starts as a little friendly game and gets dark and bloody with real deaths and sure real blood and knives. So that's sort of the gist of the movie. So basically, the movie opens with a guy who's talking to his girlfriend on the phone, and then he lets her go, gets in the shower, and then he hears strange noises, walks around his house, and then his girlfriend surprises him at his house or apartment. Um, but there seems to be somebody else there. That's how it opens, and but ultimately we get to this mansion, this old like deserted, haunted sort of farmhouse, basically, and they have this they're setting it up for this murder mystery weekend thing. But then of course it goes from fake stuff to real stuff. That's the gist of the movie. As far as the cast goes, we have Jamie Gannon as Charlie, Melissa Renee Martin as Angela, Aaron Hayes as Kristen, Chris Boyd as Doug, Bradley Stryker as Patrick, Layla Reese Landon as Julie, and Michael Lutz as Steve. So that's to set up the premise and the cast for 2001's Final Stab. Um, this is very much a paint by numbers slasher movie. It doesn't do anything new. It borrows from a lot of previous movies that came before it. I would say it's really a cross between Scream. It definitely rips off from Scream. Scream and April Fool's Day are the two that come to mind. And then, of course, it references within the movie a lot of Friday the 13th and Halloween. But unfortunately for this movie, it's not nearly as entertaining or as good as any of those movies I just mentioned. But it does borrow or steal, if you want to say, a lot from those movies. Um, so like I said, I have more nostalgia for this movie than I recognize it being great. It's not a great slasher movie, although a lot of the cons with this movie I can say describe about 70% of all slasher movies. So to be fair to it, there's that. There's a lot of slasher movies that aren't great in terms of direction, acting, camera work. You could go right down the line. So this review is going to be relatively short for this one because I really just don't have that much to say about it. As far as pros go, I did enjoy the sort of, as I normally do, the sort of who done it aspects of the movie, the mystery aspects of who the killer is. I was engaged in that, especially as some of the twists and turns are revealed in the last third of the movie or so. So I always enjoy a good mystery, a good who done it, red herrings and twists and all those type of things. The best thing about this movie, it has a very efficient runtime of only 81 minutes. Actually, only 75 minutes if you remove the beginning credits and the ending credits. So that's definitely a positive. It's not a slog to get through. You're never really bored or disinterested in watching as it gets right to the meat and potatoes of the movie. So that's a good thing. I thought the character of Aaron Hayes, Aaron Hayes, the actress who plays Kristen, sort of our main antagonist, I guess, if you want to say, in the movie. I thought she did a good job of portraying a very snobby, privileged character who has just enough mysterious elements and craziness to them to really make it work, to make the premise work to a certain extent. I thought she did a good job portraying that character. Um, there's pretty decent atmosphere created at the beginning and really throughout the movie that helps engage the viewer. They like lightning. Whoever made this movie is really a big fan of lightning. I'll say that, and sort of that outdoor stormy atmosphere that you tend to get in a lot of older horror movies. It was a dark and stormy night kind of thing. They really used lightning to the utmost. And then my final pro for this movie, yes, I'm already at the end of my pros. I did kind of like the ambiguous ending. A lot of times in horror movies or slash movies, we don't really get an ambiguous ending. It's like either everything's wrapped up in a nice little package, or we get an ending that doesn't make any sense at all, and is kind of just that just kind of ends abruptly. This movie doesn't really do that. It does kind of give you what you think is there's a conclusion reached as far as who's doing what, but then it kind of goes on a little bit and it kind of leaves you thinking, oh, wait a minute, maybe it wasn't exactly how it played out, and maybe there's a little bit more to it than that. I kind of like that aspect, even though it doesn't entirely work in this movie. I'll get into that in my cons, but I just kind of like an ambiguous, sort of creepy ending to any horror movie. That's why it's a horror movie. It should have a creepy ending, and not necessarily an ending where everything's wrapped up in a neat little bow. So there's that. Getting into some cons in this movie, and I really could find more, but the characters, minus the one I mentioned, is Kristen, played by Aaron Hayes. The characters are really poorly written, poorly acted for the most part, and they have really no motivations or depth in this movie. I think that's, and again, you could say that about 75% of slasher movies from the 2000s or even the 80s and everything in between. A lot of times, characters are just kind of there for cannon fodder. They're just kind of there to be killed, a warm body, if you will, for the killer. But this movie, particularly, it just all the characters are so bland. They're so badly acted. There's just nothing there. I have to say as well, from a visual standpoint and direction standpoint, the movie looks like it's being shot on a rowboat, or a rocking boat in rough waters, because there's a lot of this with camera movement. It's like they're turning the camera. It's like, couldn't they afford to get like a mount or something for the camera? It's like somebody's actually holding it by hand and having almost like they're having rocking or something back and forth to try to keep themselves entertained. I don't know, but that kind of took me out of the movie in certain parts. The biggest disappointment I think with this movie is, okay, you don't have much plot, you don't have very good characters. That's fine. We've seen plenty of slasher movies like that, but then you at least have to deliver on the kills. And this movie really doesn't deliver on the kills either. That's the biggest disappointment with this movie. The kills, while there are quite a few people that are killed in this movie, they're really disappointing in terms of any creativity, any gore, and in some cases, even on screen type of kills or visuals having to do with the kills. It's just very lackluster, very by the numbers, just very disappointing in the kills. And that's, I think, as I said, that's the biggest disappointment with this movie. I can get around the fact that, okay, you don't want to have characters or really a pretty contrived story, or a tight story, I should say. It is a contrived story. Then you at least have to have good kills, and unfortunately, this movie comes up short in that area as well. The look of the killer with the mask that they're wearing is laughable. It looks like they went to Walmart and bought a $15 mask. This cover here, this mask would actually be cool if that's the one that was actually used, but it's not, unfortunately. Um, it's so lackluster, just like everything else in this movie. There's nothing scary about the killer, nothing unique about the killer. It's a killer that's wearing a rubber mask from Walmart that has a knife. That's pretty much it. Some of the twists and logic are highly convoluted and honestly pretty hard to believe. especially at the end of the movie when we get to our twists and turns. Some of them are pretty hard to get around, and some of them are like, yeah, that was pretty obvious kind of thing. And this movie, it tries to be smarter than it actually is. It does one of those things. It's like I said, it tries to rip off from Scream basically, but the difference is Scream was actually smart because of the acting, because of the characters and the directing. This movie tries to be that way, but it falls flat on its face because it's none of those things. They would have been better off trying not to be smart and just having it be, like 60% of the other slashers out there. So that doesn't work. The acting is really weak, as I mentioned. The biggest thing I can say is this is just a standard slasher movie that offers nothing new or interesting. It's not scary. The kills aren't great. The acting's terrible. The directing's not that good. Yeah, it's the ultimate paint by numbers early 2000s slasher movie. That's the best way to sum it up. And my final pet peeve, and this is one of long standing for me, the opening sequence has a dream sequence. A dream sequence. I mean, how many times are these movies gonna do this? I mean, I hate the dream sequences. They're old, they're cheap, and they're lazy, in my opinion. And you right away you lose a little bit of the audience's engagement when you do that. And I hate it. I hate it. And I know that's probably more of a me thing, but it just drives me nuts, especially in horror movies. It's a big pet peeve of mine. So those are my pros and cons for Final Stab from 2001. I'm going to give this movie a 5.5 out of 10. It's very standard. It's really not that good. Again, I have more nostalgia for it because of when I got it, who I got it from in the early 2000s. Um, and so because of that, I'm probably going to keep it in my collection, and I'll watch it again maybe once every couple 2 or 3 years or so. But it's not a movie I can really recommend unless you're just a slasher movie fanatic. No matter how good, no matter how bad, then you could watch it. It is cheap. I know you can get it fairly cheap on DVD. I think even for like a 99 cents. So there is that if you just want to check out a pretty bad slasher movie. But 5.5 out of 10 for Final Stab from 2001. Go ahead and comment down below if you guys have seen this movie, what you think of it, your thoughts. Comment down below. Please like this video and hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews for this series. And please subscribe to my channel as well so you don't miss any of my great horror content pretty much the rest of the year that I have planned out. So I hope you guys are enjoying this series and you enjoyed this review. Hope everybody's doing well, having a good summer, but stay scared. Bye.